fair play is one of the fundamental principles that true sports try to get across and trying to emphasize. And what I'm finding is it doesn't really matter which group I go to, whether I'm talking to Jim McLoughlin with the Renegades, or I'm talking to the NOHA, or I'm talking to Sport Link, or I'm talking to a basketball association. Everybody talks about fair play. What is fair play?
Fair play is a level playing field. Not how much time you get compared to somebody else.
Okay.
That works itself out always. But fair play is you don't want a 16-year-old playing against an 8-year-old. That would be unfair.
Okay.
But within the 8-year-old level, you have different calibers. Within the 10-year-old level, you have different. They're all not the same, and it's got nothing to do with size. It's all ability. And you have kids that fumble over the puck. And if you put him on a team where everybody has strong, weak, and poor players, well, when he's on the ice, he'll never touch the puck if the other team has their strong players on. Not that they match lines. He will never touch the puck, and he will never progress. But if he's playing on a team of the same caliber against a team of the same caliber, well, you know what? All those kids will trip over the blue line. They'll all fall down at the puck. They'll all be equal. They'll all get up. They'll all touch the puck. They'll all get rid of it at the same way. But at the end of the day, they will all learn at the same level, and the coach will be able to teach him. He doesn't have to work in breakout plays where offside is more important. And if you have a mixture of players on the same team, who does the coach spend his time with? The stronger ones at the expense of the weaker ones, or the weaker ones at the expense of the stronger ones? So to me, that is what fair play is. And for years, the Valley East, and you know that yourself, Bob, we've always been the leaders of doing this. We used to have our old tier system. We take the strong kids, all the strong kids go in 4 teams, all the weak kids go in. And when you used to watch those games, at the end of the year, you would have kids on those weaker teams. Wow, look at those kids, they should be up. But you know what? They weren't like that at the beginning, because the coaching was teaching them at the same level, and all of a sudden these kids they came into their own. And that's what it's all about. At the beginning of the year, they all start off even. And then some kids progress more than others, but you got to get them. It's about puck time. You got to get them, and if it's soccer, it's about touching the ball. You know, if it's baseball, it's about teaching them how to hit, so they can all do something at the same level and play against teams at the same level.
Is that why at the younger ages, like at the entry levels, whether it's soccer, whether it's basketball, hockey, that there seems to be more fun, that the parents seem to be, like, they're all falling over each other, and the skill level just isn't. Yeah,
and you know why? Because every boy plays his share of ice also.
Right.
The coach is not sitting somebody out in the middle of the second period because they got 2 power plays at a low level. It's a power play at that level. The kids don't even know they have a man advantage. They just want to go on the ice. One of the funniest things I ever seen was years ago when one of my sons, he was playing that junior tyke, I guess, and they're on a 3-minute buzzer system.
Right.
And at that time, I was coaching pee-wee hockey, and my neighbor never played hockey. Really nice fella. And so one day he comes over and he says, "Oh, Jimmy," he says, "I wanted to ask you, because I wasn't at this game, and I guess they went into and they get a 3-minute shift. When the buzzer goes, the next line goes on." And he says, "You would know this." He says, "I couldn't believe the coach today." He said, one shift left, he didn't put his power line on." These are 4- and 5-year-old kids. Yeah. I said, "Look," I said, "you know what?" I said that's okay for Pee-wee and that, but I said all these kids know when that 3 minutes is up, it's their turn to go on the ice. And if you disappoint them, you have just broken a kid's heart. Yeah. And for what? And he said, "Oh, I never thought of that." And it's true. Some of those kids at that age don't even know what the score is, and we don't use scoreboards at that age, and that's the beauty of it. The parents don't even notice, because some of those scores go up into football scores. If you watch the lowest level of hockey, which is, we call it junior tyke here, the best hockey to watch, the best, and you know that yourself. These kids are first time on skates, and if you watch them at the beginning, they're all falling down. Yeah. They need chairs out there just to stand up. You watch them in March, unbelievable what they've been taught by their coaches.
Yeah, and you know when you talk about this perception of fairness by the kids, like I haven't coached AAA, but I coached AA and coached some pretty talented kids. Like Sean Benedam was probably one of the most talented.
Remember Sean? Excellent.
When I was coaching, I had this policy that out of the 3 lines, whatever line finished a period, the next line that was supposed to go on would start the next period.
Yeah.
And it was totally unreal that I didn't have to remember which line was on next.
They knew, absolutely.
And this whole perception of fairness, you didn't get the top line wanting to jump.
No.
They took their turn.
Yeah.
And it was interesting when you looked at that level where if you did do something different, and sometimes there were times when you had to.
Yeah.
There were times when there was a situation in a game where, you know, I know it's your turn, but I'm going to put you on next.
Yeah.
What I found was it deflated the entire room.
Yeah.
Not like even the line that was being put out of turn.
Right. Yeah.
Felt funny.
It felt funny. That's right. That's right.
But as a coach, when you know the parents are up in the stands wanting you to manipulate that game so you had the best chance of winning, there's a lot of pressure.
Yeah, you're right. You're right.
At House League, you can say, well, no, everybody plays fair.
Yeah.
When you get into the competitive level, there's an understanding that, well, everybody plays fair until the last period. Everybody until the last 5. You know, the 5 minute rule. The last 5 minutes are mine.
Yeah.
And I think what's happening over time is that there are so many options now available. Because like when you and I were growing up, okay, you played hockey or you played what?
That's right. What else did you play?
There was nothing else.
There was nothing else. That's right.
Now there's so many things that I think one of the challenges that we're seeing across the country is that when kids hit high school, all of a sudden they start leaving organized sports like crazy, and they start playing high school sports because there's so many different things to play.
There is.
Now, is that a bad thing?
No, it's not. Another thing that puzzles me, a lot of kids that I coached, and like I said, they're in their 30s, mid-30s now. Some of them aren't even playing recreational hockey anymore. And at that, you know, like somewhere, now, of course, they're in the middle of their careers, they have their own family and that, but even some of them have just given it up altogether. And I played until I was 40, 45 or 50, you know what I mean? And I loved it. Yeah. And I find a lot of kids, and they're so great that they're out there coaching. And it's like I can relate, like back in those days, even me, like when I coached, I didn't have a number 1, 2, 3, and I did something similar in each game. Whose turn is it to start? If you started last game, you do it by period, and these kids would, I never had to worry who started. The kids would tell me, and you're right, I would never ever jump in and say no, not tonight, you know. And I think also, and you know what, that last 5 minutes has always been an unwritten rule, and I do believe in it when it comes to this. If you're in a tournament and by scoring one more goal or holding off one goal in that last 4 or 5 minutes means these kids get another 20 shifts each for the next game, well, you have to do it. You have to do it. If you're down by 10 goals, what are you doing it for? You know.
Plus, what happens is you don't want to put a weaker kid in a position where he's going to be overpowered.
Yeah, you're right.
The other team.
Yeah.
So that's where you get your play fair and your competition. And
I think kids are smart too. They also know. And you know what, kids, I really believe this. Kids, I'm sure they get a lot of teasing at school. And if you put a player on in the last couple of minutes and they happen to score and he was maybe your weakest player, but it was his turn to go on, and all of a sudden these kids don't get another game out of it. And it wouldn't be his fault because every kid's going to try. Well, you know, we don't see as coaches or parents when those kids go to school. They might take a little bit of battering there, you know, like bullying or whatever. And you know what? We never hear about it. That's one beauty about it. So obviously they're handling it, and I think the reason they handle it is because they're playing a team sport, and as a coach or the coaches, that's why I say the coaches instill in these kids. It's about teamwork. It's about you know, and we both see that in these kids' day-to-day lives now as adults. What they've been taught in sports is just carried through.
Do you think we're losing the team aspect of competitive sports, though? And to explain that, you played with your neighbors a number of years ago. Like so the kids that were playing on one particular team generally knew each other.
Yeah.
And what's happening in a lot of cases now is you've got a draft system and you've got a geographical system and you've got this you've got this approach now where you know, kids are playing at their level, but now they're playing at their level in another town. I experienced it myself with my own kids. Actually, I think Marty was on your team one year when we did this.
That's right.
When I had him registered as an age up, and he was playing down, and like we switched him every now and then.
That's right.
This whole idea of playing at your highest level sometimes takes you away from the team aspect, and you now become an individual, where you're in a transition from one year to the next, and what you're trying to do is basically compete with your teammates to get to the next level. So there's a built-in challenge here that you have a team of, let's say, a AA team, where all of the players are trying to catch the attention of the AAA coaches.
Right,
For next year.
Yeah, that's right.
And you've got a real strange situation, and I can remember with our midgets, our Consbeck midgets, one year talking to Dan LaFrance, and Dan saying to me that he didn't understand what the bantam players were like anymore, or the midget players at House League, where he had an opportunity to pull them up to play on the
AAA team.
Yeah, the AAA team, or the double. He had a chance to pull them up, and he couldn't get anybody to come up because they were going to a dance, or they were going somewhere else, or he said that people would have died to have a chance to come up to AAA.
You're right.
And the kids now, and this was maybe 5, 6, 7 years ago, it was starting to transition. Kids are now starting to get back into this. Oh no, it'd be nice to play on that team, but you're only bringing me up because you need me. You're not bringing me up because you want me on the team.
You want me on the team. That's right.
It's like
maybe the kids are getting a little bit smarter. You know, maybe they're looking at the whole picture.
Yeah, and I can see where, regardless of what sport you're in, the principles that you follow and adopt and apply in all of your decisions may be the same, but they're being judged and evaluated, constantly. I always used to tell people, I said, I was a teacher for 28 years, but boy, I'm telling you, I would have felt an awful lot more uncomfortable if I knew that I was teaching in front of a glass wall, and every single one of my parents was watching what I was doing every single day.
Now, isn't those kids? That's funny, because I used to mention to parents, I said, do you go into classrooms like that where that's your son's livelihood? That's more important than any game of hockey. Do you want to critique the teachers like a coach in recreational hockey? And I always used to find that again a minority, right? A minority. And here's the way I've always looked at Bob. I always said, if you had a hockey team, you had 13 skaters and 2 goalies, and you won every game 13-0, and every kid played the exact amount of time, and you split your goalies half and half, and every boy got 1 goal and 2 assists, and you all got 13 minutes of ice, there would still be a complaint. Okay. And I've always said, like, if you have 30 parents on a team, no matter what happens, and I think back 20, 30 years ago, it's always a minority. I'd say the minority might have been 3 or 4 parents might squawk, not sets of parents, that's just 3 or 4 out of the 30. I think today it's still a minority, but that might be up to 7 or 8 now. And it doesn't sound like much, but that's doubled. That's doubled, and it's always the people who they usually have an agenda, and the agenda is usually shifted towards their son, not as a team where the coach looks after the whole team. And they always have the loudest voice because they don't care who they say it in front of, and people will listen until they get to know them. And to me, where I believe that's double. Let's say from 3 to 7, 3.5 to 7. Well, that's 50% more, 100% more complaints than what we got 30 years ago. And I think in house league hockey, it's gone the opposite because of the fair play and because when the parents go out there, all they want to see is their little Johnny go out there, have a good time, give him his pop after the game, and he's happy. And I think that's the parents in house league. I came back 5 years ago, and there was a time 10, 12 years ago, like it was bad to come and not any arena, because all you heard in the stands was parents never even got along. They were worried about this, worried about that, and all related to hockey. And now geez, what a difference! It's a pleasure to come out to a rink now, and it's been like that. And that's because of the people we have involved in our sports. Like at our and every community is the same. I see it I don't just see that in one association. I see that Sudbury, Garson, the parents are fantastic. And I'm going to go back to this fair play. Years ago, I can remember, and you would remember too, in our Valley East House League, and parents would be, geez, they'd be upset if their kid made the lower level.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
like it was
So
something
it's like
on them. Yeah,
like an embarrassment.
yeah, and that's sort of almost gone now, because what happens is you get a team, let's say from Sudbury who's doing it now, you get a team from Garson who puts a C team in. You know what? Those parents come out there and you should hear them. They are so happy and they're cheering their kids on, and there's no embarrassment out there for the parents. They're going to work the next day or carrying on with their lives. But when they see their kids touch the puck and get a goal that they wouldn't have got on a higher team, and then the next year, where's that kid? Geez, his skill level has gone up and he is playing up on a higher level. It's just an amazing.
Does that create a problem though? Because now it's a whole different atmosphere for the parents and the kid when you move up to that next level and you get into, let's say, the A level or the double A level, and now the competition starts to take on a whole different approach. Now it's not quite as much fun. Can you have as much fun on traveling teams as you can in house league?
You should.
How do you do it? How do we do it? How do we, or are most people having fun? We're only hearing about the one or two that are not.
I think you're basically hearing about, again, the minority that are not. I think you've coached rep hockey, and I think at the end of the day, Bobby, and you're the same as me. When you went to tournaments, I think at the end of that tournament, your pride and joy was not the kids winning it, but making sure that everybody felt part of what happened on that ice. Am I right?
Yeah.
From your top player to your weakest player, okay? From your number 1 to number 15, whatever, however they were, and as long as everybody walked away from that tournament and felt good about themselves, your job was done. And you don't win every tournament, you don't lose every tournament. You win your share, you lose your share. But to me, it was always important that at the end of that every one of those players felt part of what happened within that weekend. And a lot of that does outside the ice, like off the ice. I'm sure your kids used to play ball hockey in the halls, or you'd have them up to your room, and
they often had more fun playing in the hallways than they did on the ice.
And you'd always communicate with them. You know, they weren't afraid to go up and talk to you. You know, you'd pat them on the back in the hotel, or how's it going? You'd sit down and talk to them. That's the experience that they get. I think sometimes the parents might only see what happens on the ice instead of seeing the interaction between the coaching staffs and the kids. They don't always get to see that. Yeah. And the respect that these kids.
So that's where your team community can be built.
Yeah.